I'm asking you to not only give us ears to hear, but actually challenge us in this room that we ourselves choose to hear to some degree. That we don't turn off our hearing aid, so to speak, and stop hearing. And then when we hear, we trust and we begin to walk. Knowing that if we do the opposite, what it does is it hardens our heart. But we don't want to ever have a hard heart. We want to always have a soft heart. So just deal with us in Jesus' name. Amen. You know, last night, yesterday actually, Varick was watching that show. The little, what are they called? Little MasterChef Juniors, a bunch of kids. And I don't know if you've ever watched any of those cooking shows where it's adults, where they have to battle through and deceive and rob and cheat the other guy to get in, and they have bad attitudes. One of the things that him and Candace said about the show that was neat was those kids were always encouraging one another, even if they lost. And then the loser would walk out and everybody would have high fives and have not crocodile tears, but real tears and sadness that they were walking out. And you know what? When God says for us to be like little children, He means it. And little children means exactly that we become little kids and little kids to Him. That we can be as soft and gentle as doves, but have understanding of what's out there. So at the same time that we're soft and gentle towards Him, and have soft hearts towards Him and towards others, that we always know that the devil is scheming out there, so we have eyes that see that. So we're not accusing or negative towards necessarily the world around us, but that we have more of a soft heart towards God than the evil that's happening out there, than living against the evil that's out there. Because it is. That's just the way it is. So with that being said, I want to read our Bible reading, Psalm 119. This last week, just in reading that, just was powerful. Or not 119, Psalm 19. Excuse me. So if you're not there, just you can listen to it. The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of His hand. And that goes to Romans, I think it is Romans chapter 5, I think it is, where he says, no man is without an excuse because the heavens are declaring. And this is Psalm 19 saying the same thing. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Their line, or another word for that line, is their sound. There's a sound has gone out through all the earth, and their utterances to the end of the world. In them He has placed a tent for the sun, which is a bridegroom coming out of its chamber. It rejoices as a strong man to run his course. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end of them. How many of you ever seen the earth do a 180 and start heading back the other way? Never. I know of only one instance biblically where the sun stopped, and that's it. It's been going on and on and on. God said it that way. And there is nothing hidden from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right. The law of the Lord is perfect. The testimony of the Lord is sure. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true. They are righteous altogether. Now listen to this next one. They are more desirable than gold, yes, than fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them your servant is what? warned, in keeping them there is great reward. Who can discern his errors? Acquit me of hidden faults. Acquit me of hidden faults. Also keep back your servant from presumptuous sins. Let them rule over me. Then I will let them rule over me. Then I will be blameless, and I shall be acquitted of great transgression. When they rule over me. When what rules over me? God's word. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Wow. You know, what I want to share about today is the challenge of this church. And I believe it's the challenge of every church. Because what's hard in the world that we live in such a scientific world that we can give something say this is science, even though it's not science. We can say that there's global warming and it can be scientifically proven, even though it can't be scientifically proven. But we live in such a scientific world that we know what causes this, what causes that, how we live in such a psychology world where we understand human nature and understand human thinking, and we understand so much that the warning is that we start putting our faith and our trust and our confidence in the knowledge that we have more than putting our faith, trust, and confidence in the God in whom we say we love. It's so easy because sometimes, I'll be honest, it's hard to love sometimes a God that you really don't understand, and you look at your life and you go, I don't understand why it's going this way. And then our natural course is to revert to some sort of result-oriented, if I do this, I'll get this. And we revert to that so quickly. Talking to a fellow this last week, one of their children was having bad dreams and nightmares, and one of the parents, the first thought is to somehow get her into counseling, like there's something wrong with her. And that's our natural course, is to because we understand, and we do understand a lot. We're not stupid because we're made in the image of God. But we start falling back on that stuff instead of relying and trusting and putting our faith in Him. We go, what knowledge do I need to gain? So if I gain a little bit of knowledge, I can have a better marriage. And we kind of, without even sometimes realizing, push God off to the side. Because we say, this is God, He revealed this knowledge, so we just go after that. Because God, in his wisdom, sometimes it's hard to decipher, you live in relationship with somebody that thinks much higher than you. You live in a relationship with somebody that knows the beginning and knows the end far greater than you. Far, 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 far greater than you. It's hard. It's not easy. When you're going through some troubles and you go, it's nothing that I'm doing, but is it me? And you go through that kind of struggle and you go, now I'm just going to revert back to over here because over here is better and I can understand it and it promises me this result that I really want. And then if I get the result, I can just put God's name on it and everything will be good. And the warning is, no, it isn't. The warning is we might have, listen to me, and hopefully I'll get to this, taken the name of the Lord in vain by doing that and violating His word by doing that. Sometimes and I'm just being pastoral here, sometimes I cry out to God really and I go, Lord, with all this stuff going on, it seems like you're silent. And we can mistake His silence for lack of doing anything or we can mistake his silence as in he's okay with what we're doing. But you know what silence can also mean? It can mean the last straw. And you keep walking down that path and you'll see. That's what it could mean. Remember when Balaam kept coming to God, can I do this? Can I bless them? Can I curse them? And God said, no, you don't. And then he was attracted by money to go out and curse the nation of Israel. And he kept going back to God. And God finally said, yeah, go ahead and do what you want to do. And he went and did it. And the Bible says God got mad at him. Well, of course God got mad at him. But God told him to go do it. He didn't tell him to go do it as though he was walking in obedience. He told him to go do it because Balaam was going to do it anyway. He said, you want to go do it? Go do it. And now you're going to have to face the consequences. And I will raise up even a donkey to keep you from doing it. But because you want to do what you want to do, there's nothing I can do. Go do it. And God's still mad. And we can misinterpret a lot of what we do because it seems like the blessing is over here. And just because it seems like the blessing over here doesn't mean the blessing's over there. The blessing is actually in what God has said. You ever think of the story of Jacob? Jacob was a what? A deceiver, right? From day one, he was a supplanter. Jacob means supplanter, deceiver, heel grabber. From day one, he was that. Now, why in the world did God bless him? Because until he had that wrestling match with God, he was being, it seemed like, blessed. But at the same time he was being blessed, he was being deceived by his father-in-law Laban. But you could misinterpret and go, God was blessing him and giving him all this cattle and giving him all these things. God blessing was on him. I would say you better put the brakes on. God was being more faithful to his word that he had given Abraham, that I'll be with you, I'll make you a great nation, more than he was putting a stamp of approval on Jacob being a deceiver. So in God blessing Jacob, was he blessing Jacob or was he keeping his word? See, and that's where we sometimes are at that place of being a Jacob. And we think because we're getting all this stuff, or we have all this on the outside, what looks like a blessing, why is God blessing me? Is he blessing me because of me having a right heart, or is he blessing me because of his word? Because God will stand by his word more than he will me as an individual, because God is that way, even though he loves me. So with that, this is the title of my message today. The title of my message is, what is your name? What is your name? Now, I just mentioned Jacob means deceiver, supplanter, or heel grabber. You ever know somebody that's like a heel grabber? They will step on people to get what they want. They will lie, cheat, and steal. And you know they're lying and cheating and stealing. You know that, and it drives you crazy. But there's almost like nothing that you can do. They're heel grabber, they're a deceiver, they're a supplanter. Or, for instance, a boss who will take credit for all of the good things that their employees are doing, throw their employees under the bus and take all the credit. You think God's blessing is on that? No. You think God's blessing was on Jacob because of Jacob? No. His blessing was on Jacob because he had made a promise to Abraham years ago. So because he made a promise to Abraham years ago, he had to bless Jacob. But understand that even though he didn't bless him, he was bringing Jacob to a point in his life which is very critical in how we respond to God at that moment in time. Because in Jacob chapter 27, remember when Isaac said, he told Esau, I want something to eat. Go out and get a kill and come back and give me something to eat. I'm hungry. And Esau runs out, right? And in that moment of time, Jacob's there, and Jacob and his mom actually works this thing out, and she makes him hairy and cooks him porridge and says, take this into your father so that he can bless you. And he does, and what does Isaac do? he blessed him. He starts smelling him, and he said, you don't smell like him. But boy, because his eyes weren't too good, he felt him, and he said, man, you feel like Esau. Even though you don't really smell like him, you feel like him, so you must be him. He ate the porridge. He blessed Jacob, even though something in his mind said, it ain't right. I just sent him out. How are you back here already with my food? That doesn't make sense. But because I can't see, I'll feel, and it feels like you feel like your brother. So you must be Esau. He ate, and then he what? He pronounced the blessing on Jacob. Now, even though years earlier, even though Esau had sold his birthright for some food, you think about that story even. Jacob went to the point of, could you imagine using somebody because they're hungry? In that way, and stealing something from them because they're hungry? Now, that doesn't alleviate or discount that Esau allowed himself to be deceived, okay? But that does say that Jacob deceived him. But he comes to this point, and Jacob goes to his blind father and says, I'm Esau, and feel my skin, and you feel like your brother. He pronounces the blessing, and as soon as he does, who comes through the doors? Esau does. And he's crying with tears, God, I wish you could bless, Dad, I wish you could bless me. And Isaac said, I can't. There's nothing I can do. So he kind of sent him on his way. Let's read that in Genesis chapter 32. It says, then Jacob was left alone. No. That was Genesis chapter 27. So Esau lost out on the blessing because of that. Because of Jacob the deceiver. Now watch, turn your Bible to Genesis chapter 32, because here's another story that I want you to see. And then, because as we're going through this, one of the things I want you to keep in mind is this verse. Stay at Genesis 32, but don't forget this verse. In Luke 10:25-28, a lawyer had come to Jesus and asked him about the law and summing up the law. And Jesus, in another instance, says the law is given in these two commandments. If you follow these two commandments, these two commands, you will have fulfilled all the law and the prophets. So this is what he says. And a lawyer stood up and put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And he said, what is written in the law? How does it read to you? And he answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, you have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. So we understand that if we do this, no matter what we know or don't know, if we do this, we will what? We'll live. We will live. We will live. We'll have the life of God in us. So we could do a lot of things, but if we don't do this, we're taking a chance on not what? Living. So you go back to Jacob's life, and let's now go to Genesis chapter 32. Because all the way through his life, he was a deceiver. All the way until this point in time. Something happened to him. It says, then Jacob was left alone. I think that's interesting because if we're honest with ourselves, we understand that when we walk through this life, a lot of it is by ourselves. Even if we're married, we have time by ourselves a lot. A lot of times a husband might go, man, I feel alone. I feel like my wife doesn't understand me. I feel like, man, why can't I get this thing right? Or a wife feels, even though her husband's there, sometimes she might, and I'm not saying all the time, sometimes she might feel alone. But we walk through this life alone a lot, even though we're around a lot of people. Because we carry around our thoughts. They don't. We walk by ourselves through Walmart and Home Depot and McDonald's, even though we might have the kids roaming around, because they don't understand, they don't know what's going on in my mind and in my heart. They don't know where I am with God. They don't know, we don't even know who's right with God and who's not. We can kind of look at their life and go, you have a relationship with God and you don't, but we don't really know where a person's at. So number one, we're alone. But it said, then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. I don't know if you've ever wrestled, but to wrestle all night long is hard. To wrestle for 3 minutes is hard. But to wrestle all night long is excruciatingly hard. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh. So the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So he said, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And then he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with man and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him and said, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And he blessed him there. So Jacob named that place Peniel, or however you want to say that, where he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved. Now the sun rose up upon him just as he crossed over Peniel, and he was limping on his thigh. Therefore to this day the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is in one of the sockets of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. Now what's so important with that is, number one, is he wrestled with God. And as he was wrestling and day was about to break, God said, let me go. It's daybreak. And he said, no, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. And listen to me, what was the first thing that God asked him? What was the first thing that God asked him after he said, bless me? What is your name? Now listen, please hear me. What is your name? Jacob means supplanter. Jacob means heel grabber. And Jacob means deceiver. He said, what is your name? And God turned to him, he said, bless me. And God, before God pronounced the blessing, he looked at Jacob. Did God not know what Jacob's name was? God knew what Jacob's name was. What God wanted to know is, Jacob, do you know what your name is? I don't know if you see that, but he didn't ask him for any, all he said is, what is your name? And Jacob, the deceiver, ended at that moment. Now watch this. What did he do to the father that had no good eyesight? He what? He was able to deceive his dad who was blind, who was practically blind. But his all-seeing father that could see everything, in wrestling with him, the first thing, so now he could deceive, but over here he couldn't, because his all-seeing father knew exactly who he was, and his all-seeing father over here, he said, bless me, and did his all-seeing father just haul off and bless him? No. He didn't just haul off and bless him. Isaac just blessed him, felt him, and blessed him. He goes, bless me. And God goes, what's your name? I don't know if you're seeing that. When we go, God bless me, you know what God's going to ask? What's your name? And you know what? I'm going to stay on this and stay on this until the day I die. When God comes to you and says, what's your name? Be honest. Because God already knows what your name is. And when I say what's your name, what Jacob was saying was not my name is Jacob. He was saying my name is deceiver. My name is supplanter. My name is heel grabber. That's what he was saying when he said my name is Jacob. And see, sometimes we will live our life and we want God to bless us, and then he shows up and says, what's your name? And you go, what you should go is, my name is horrible attitude. My name is whatever thought I just had. My name is deceiver. My name, sometimes God will show up and you'll say, God bless me. And your name at that moment might be champion. And you say, God, my name is champion. And he goes, I'll bless you. But when he shows up and says, what's your name? He knows your name. Understand that. So be honest. And if your name at that moment is deceiver, you know what you say? God, my name is deceiver. My name is liar. My name is cheat. My name is champion. My name is overcomer. Do you see what I'm saying? And God then, he said, your name is no longer deceiver. He said, your name now is Israel. He changed his name based off of Jacob's willing to be honest to God. See, I think sometimes we self-deceiving ourselves when God shows up sometimes and we've just done something that we know we shouldn't, and God goes, what's your name? And we go, overcomer. And you're not overcoming at all. And we walk away and go, God's going to bless me now. And God goes, no, I'm not. I don't have to bless you. Number one, why would I bless you? You were just dishonest with me, the all-seeing God that knows where your heart's at, that knows the thoughts that go through your brain. Just be honest with me. If you're honest with me, then you have the ability then to be honest with yourself. And then we have some parts of Christianity that will say, you're no longer a deceiver, you're a champion. So never identify with you being... If God comes to you and says, what's your name? And you're being deceptive in your dealings with other people, then you know what your name is at that time? Not champion. It's not overcomer. If you're a husband and wife and you're off cheating on your wife or cheating on your husband, and God shows up to you and says, what's your name? And you say, I'm an overcomer. God goes, okay, keep doing what you're doing. But when you say, God, between you and God, God, I am an adulterer. He goes, no, you're not, because I'm going to change your name. Your name is no longer adulterer. Your name is this. And you know what? How often does that happen? All the time. Because we're living in a relationship with Him. And God wants us to live a consecrated life towards Him. And then on those moments when you just get done doing something great, let's say, and you have overcome, and He shows up and He goes, what's your name? What's your name? And you go, overcomer. He goes, absolutely, you're an overcomer. And He continues to bless you. But where we run and hide sometimes is our honesty with God. Because you got to see, Jacob was able to hoodwink his Isaac, but he was not able to hoodwink God. And no matter what we say and the power of our words will not overcome the disobedience in our heart. It just will not, especially when we're dealing with God. Just because I say something over and over and over and over again does not make it true. Unless I'm able to come to grips with the fact that today I'm not an overcomer. Today I'm a discourager, or I'm discouraged. That's your name? Nope, that's not your name. I'm going to give you a new name. You're encourager, or you be encouraged. See what I'm saying? Now watch this. Another thing that's amazing about that God asked him what his name was it says that God had dislocated Jacob's thigh. Jacob could not walk the same. Listen to me. Jacob could not walk. I'm going to say it again. Jacob could not walk the same again. He couldn't. Even if he tried, he could not walk the same. Now, listen to me. Please hear me. Because I've struggled sometimes in my own life, and it's like, why can't I stop? I'll tell you why you can't stop. Somebody that can start and stop, God hasn't transformed their life. Somebody that can give up here and there, I'll guarantee you, when you come to when you really have a walk with God and your relationship with God is growing, there are going to be times when you can't. Even if I could or wanted to, I can't. Why? Because of me? No, because God dislocated my thigh, dislocated my life, and even if I try with everything that I have, I can't walk any different. I have to walk with Him. I have to be honest. I have to be... Some of you ever feel like you can... Why is it so easy for them to lie, but it feels like if you even tell a white lie, God goes like this with you. They go over here and lie and cheat and steal, and they're fine. But you tell some little white lie, and it's almost like He gets the spotlight out and kind of goes like this with you and lifts you up in the spotlight. And you go, how come I can't lie and get away with it? How come I can't just tell a little white lie and get away with it? It's not going to... And you feel like God shines the light on that. You know what? That is a good place to be. You're one of the fruit, I guess, of your life really being changed is that it's hard for you to do things that you might want to do or that you could do yesterday. Why is it so easy for some people to give up here and to stop here and to start here and quit over here and move over here and do this and do that? And sometimes it's so hard for you to stop things, or it's so hard for you to even tell a little white lie. It's so hard. Why can't I? I'll tell you why. Because God's dislocated your thigh. God's dislocated your life. And now because you've been dislocated by Him, it's hard for you to do those things. That is a blessed life, because your life is never the same. How come it looks like some Christians, their life never changes and they can do things and it's like no big deal, and then it looks like they do those things and it kind of looks like the blessings on them, but you do something a little bit shady or a little bit in the dark, and God goes, now I'm going to shine the light on that. And you go, why can't I? I'm telling you, that is the most blessed life that you'll ever live. Is that when you've been so dislocated by God that you can't, even if you try. I'm going to try to call my boss up and lie that I'm sick today because I just don't want to go to work, and you do that, and God on the inside. Now, if you can do that and you're okay with that, I'm not trying to heap anything on you. What I'm saying is, I know, like with Candace, it'll be like, God, I just want to stay home. She has all this sick time, but she can't call in sick. But why is it that somebody else can call in sick left and right, and they're sick like once, twice a week, and they're not sick, and they're off playing around over here and playing around over here? Because your life has been dislocated by God, and your walk is never going to be the same. And you know what else about a dislocated life is sometimes it's off kilter. Sometimes it's off kilter. You're not walking the same. And sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes you go, man, I wish I could walk like everybody else walks. I wish everything wasn't so sometimes cut and dry with me. I wish it was a little easier to call in sick. I wish it was a little easier to do this. I wish it was a little easier to go and watch that movie, and a little easier to listen to this type of music or that type of music, and you're aching to do that. But every time you do that, God gets on you and you go, man, why can't I when they can? It doesn't make sense. I'll tell you why. Because your life has been dislocated by God. And the only way that you fit, I'm be honest, the only way that you fit is in your relationship with God. That's it. That's the only way that you fit. You know, like Pastor Candace was saying, it's hard because you don't know how to respond or react to people nowadays. People that have disabilities, sometimes you don't know. And even if you knew, you still don't necessarily know because you're dealing with people. And you kind of feel like out of joint or I wish I knew. But if you knew how to operate with those people, that's great. But I'll guarantee you there's somebody out there that you don't know how to operate with. So the best life to live is the one that's lived wholeheartedly before Him. So in any given situation, He's the one moving through you, not you discovering the scientific ways to deal with people or human psychology so that when I'm in this group, I can live this way. When I'm with this group, I can do that. Because if we're honest with ourselves, I don't think any of us are really comfortable with different groups of people, and we're always disjointed to some degree because we're Christians with the world around us. We're always that way because God has removed our thigh and made us to walk different. So hopefully that's some sort of encouragement. But he said, the lawyer said to love your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love others. Now watch this. When there are some people that are easy to love, they're easygoing. You could say something off color and they don't fly off the handle. You can be harsh and they don't kind of water off a duck's back. They're easy. But then there are other people that are really hard. And then there are other people, and even the easy and hard, you kind of like, was that funny to him? Did that matter to him? Because it really does. Or some people you might know instantly if it does. But I know me, I'm uncomfortable with around even people that I know because I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. But one thing I'll say is we're willing to live in relationship with people, which means we grow in that. We grow in our relationship with one another, we grow in our relationship with God, and we grow in our relationship with you. But this one thing I want you to see is how does our love for God, and when we have a love for God, that it affects everything that we do, to where we love Him with all of our mind, heart, soul, strength, body, with everything that we do. Everything that we do is done unto Him. Everything that we do. It will, I'll guarantee, even though you might not know it, it will affect how you see others. It cannot do anything other than that. And this is how you're going to see others. Because remember, Jacob went in and he what? He deceived Isaac, basically stole the blessing from Esau. Esau comes in, finds out that his brother stole the blessing, and his dad basically says, you're on your own. Then you come years later, and through this process of time, God's dealing with Esau, and dealing with Jacob, and He comes to Jacob and He says, what's your name? Jacob says, deceiver. God changes his life, says, nope, you're no longer deceiver, you're Israel, and I'm going to make a great nation out of you, Right after that, what happens? He comes in contact with who? With who? He comes in contact with Esau. What's amazing about that whole story is this. Jacob is not fearful of Esau. Jacob actually is fearful of God and wants to be right with Esau. Any of you ever want to be right with somebody and you're kind of scared because you don't know how they're going to respond? And it's not that you're afraid of how they're going to respond, you just don't know. And you're hoping everything in you, I hope it works out right, but it may not work out right, and you just don't know. Well, that's the point that Jacob was at, and he told his his one group of his clan to go this way and one group. So if Esau came down heavily on this group, at least this group would succeed and get past him. If he came down over here, then this group would get past him. And then he was brought to a place to where he had to actually meet Esau what? Face to face. Now watch this. And you go back and read the story. Jacob's life is changed to the degree that his walk is never the same. The minute he sees Esau, he looks at Esau, the one who he deceived, and he was kind of like, I don't know where Esau's at, and hopefully we will go bearing gifts, not to buy his love, but you know what I did was wrong, and we need to do whatever we need to do to make this thing right. And he was bearing gifts. But what's interesting is when Jacob saw Esau, what did Jacob tell Esau? Go back in your Bibles and read it. He said this. He said, Esau, I look at your face, and it's as though I'm looking at the face of who? It's as though I'm looking at the face of God. You guys hear that? When we're walking with God with all of our heart, all of our mind, all of our strength, with everything within us, we start looking at people and we see the face of God in people. When you can look at people and you don't see the face of God in them, challenge your own heart. Say, maybe something's not right here. Because the minute he got right and God said, I change your name, when he saw Esau, the first words that came out of his mouth were, man, I'm seeing your face, but I'm not really seeing your face. It's as though I'm looking into the face of God. And see, that goes with love God with everything in you and love your neighbor. If we love God with everything in us, we can love because we're seeing the face of God and we respond to them accordingly. But when we're not looking into there and we're not seeing the face of God, something may be wrong in here. Maybe we're not serving God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength. Maybe we're operating off of pop psychology and trying to get right with that person just so we feel better. Because we want a certain result. So we'll maneuver and we'll manipulate so that we get the right result. With God, there is no maneuvering. There is no manipulating. When we're right with Him, we can look into the face of even that person that we think might want to do us harm and say, and not for our good or our benefit, but honestly say, when I look into your face, I see the face of God. Now watch this. I'm going to close up on this next thing. So understand that our call in life, above anything, is to love God with everything that we have. And in doing that, I'll guarantee you will not be able to hate your neighbor. You will not be able to treat people badly because you've seen the face of God. You've spent time with God. Your heart is on fire for Him. All you want is Him, to where other people, all you want to do now is bless them. And whenever you look at them, you see the face of God. You see God in them. Because you're staring at mercy that's been given to you. When you look at God and you see His face, you're staring at mercy. And when you look at others and see God's face because your heart is right with Him, you see mercy. And God goes, I've extended you mercy. Now what? Now I just want to extend mercy. Now watch this. Because there's something in that. Because Jacob also turned around and he said, okay, God, give me your name. Now, did God give him his name? God did not give him his name. God did not tell him, my name is. He said, why do you want to know my name? And he didn't really give him an answer. And then that's when Jacob went and he named this here Peniel, and he dedicated that to God, that place that he was at, to God. But God never gave him his name. But you know what? God does give us his name. Because our freedom to live for him comes in two ways. Knowing our name at any given moment in time and knowing his name. And it's not so much, listen to me, it's not so much that we know his name. Because the problem sometime therein, and I'll go back to what I said at the beginning, is we know something, and because we know something, we think we know something. And it's not true. I can know Candace's name, but not want to spend time with her as my wife. Want to run around here and there. I don't know her. I know her name. I know Bruce's name, but do I really know his name? No. But if I grow in relationship, I start discovering, and relationship takes periods of time, and I start discovering little tidbits and little things about them that I didn't know before. Where if I go, his name is Bruce, and I walk away and, do you know Bruce? Yeah, I know Bruce. Do I have to discover? Through relationship, I get to know different areas of Bruce's life, different areas of Varick's life, different areas of Leland's or whatever, different aspects of their life. Why? Because of relationship. And a lot of times what we do with God is we know his name. His name is this, Jehovah Jireh. But we don't really know his name is that because we're enthralled with our knowledge that his name is Jehovah Jireh. Now watch this. Because knowing who we are and knowing who he is very important. And I learned something. This. Remember when God was laying down the commandments? And he said, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. And then you go over to, in Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 30, where the person writing the Proverbs said, don't make me rich and don't make me poor. Just give me enough so that I don't take your name in vain. What? Give me just enough that I need so that I don't take your name in vain. But in Exodus, when he's writing out the Ten Commandments, he says, thou shalt not take, our translation says take. But that's kind of a wrong translation of what the meaning of that is. Because if you think of the word take, what do we take a lot of times? We take sometimes what's ours, but we can take something that is what? Not ours, can't we? The word there is not take. The word there is carry. Thou shalt not carry the name of the Lord in vain. So it goes from me saying, oh my God, that was a great play. Oh, I just took the Lord's name in vain. I did by saying, oh my God, that was a great play, or that was a great song, or whatever. No! That's not what now if I say God, bleep, maybe so. But that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, thou shalt not carry my name in vain. In other words, something that you take, I what? Sorry, Varick. I take it. Whether it's been given to me or not, I take it. And if I take it, I do with it what I want. But when the Bible says thou shalt not carry the name of what do you carry? Something that's been what? Given to you. And God gives us his name not so that we can't take it in vain, so that we don't carry it through life in vain. Very drastic different meanings. Because in life, if I take his name in vain, then that means I set the rules. But if he's given me his name and I carry his name wherever I go, that means God sets the rules on how you carry my name. Remember those two guys that were carrying the ark and they stumbled? Remember that? And God what? Killed them. Wow! Over here, the ark is in the midst of sinner country and God's blessing them because the ark's there. These two guys are taking it and they stumble and God shoots them dead. They're carrying something. And a lot of times what we do is we don't recognize that we're carrying God's name. When I go to work, whose name am I carrying? I'm carrying his name. So all of my business dealings, all of my dealings in my neighborhood, all of my dealings with my husband, my wife, my kids, I'm carrying his name. There's a banner over my head and it says God. It says Jehovah. It doesn't say Michael, angel. It says him. I'm representing him. And if I represent him and I'm carrying his name, that challenges me then to live that way, not only to him, but it challenges me then to live that way to my to people that I'm around. Because I'm carrying something that has been given. I don't have something that I've taken. That's number one. Then number two, and this is what I want to kind of close up on, is to understand that you and I have a name. But to build our life based off of our name would be absolutely the wrong thing. We're living to create because we're living up to our name. We want to, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as we keep our name under his name in the way we're living and understand that we're not carrying our name as much as we're carrying his name. Go back to Revelation chapter 3, and when Jesus shows up and he's talking to the church in Sardis, what does he say? He says, I know that you think you've made a name for yourself, but I have that against you. Because you're relying on the name that you've created for yourself. You're not relying on his name. You go, I've created a good name, and the goal of my life is so that when I die, my name, what? Means something. So when I die, my name means something. Is that the goal of the Christian life? Is so when I die, my name means something? In reality, no. It's when I die, God means something. His name means more than mine. It's kind of like the United States flag. In the United States, there are certain ways that you're supposed to put a flag, and you always have the flag above all of the other flags, right? And his name is always above ours. But sometimes we get our wires crossed, and we're trying to create within us a good name, which is not wrong. But if we're trying to create a good name so that we can rely on the name that we've created, that's where God has a problem. Because he looked at the church of Sardis and he said, I know your name. People think you're this. People think you're that. You have a good name and we should go after that. But that's where it goes to, am I serving God with all of my heart, strength, soul, mind, body, with everything that I have? If I do, I will have a good name. But my good name is not my goal. His great name, being known to the world, is my goal. And I carry his name with me wherever I go. So I cherish that. That means something to me. I'm a Christian. That means something to me. Not, oh, by the way, I'm a Christian. No, I'm a Christian. That means something to me. I can't get away with the things that other people get away with, even if they name the name of Christ. I can't do that. Why? Because I'm carrying his name. I'm identifying with him more than I'm identifying with my name. And I'll close on this. Varick, you can come forward. I'm going to close on this. It says, Bible says in Hebrews, it says, in your time of need, you can come boldly before the throne of grace to find help in your time of need. Now this is where, and I'm going to close on this. This is where you'll find out who you're really identified with. You want to hear the easy way to find out who you're identified with? One of the ways that you'll be able to identify who you're identifying with is in your time of need. Because that's when you will run to whatever you would run to find comfort. Now watch this. Do you run to, listen to me, in your time of need, to the dinner table or the kitchen? Do you run to the hair salon? Do you run to that you're confused. You don't know what you have need of something, and yeah, I went to God, but now I need to fulfill this need or this confusion in my heart. I need to run somewhere that brings me what? Comfort. So I run to the tattoo parlor, the shopping spree. Do you run to your bestie? Do you run to your game system, your job, or whatever? This is the challenge. Next time you're confused, in trouble, sick, this is what I want you to do, is watch, hear, and see where you run to first. That will let you know what you're identifying with or who you identify to. See, what God wants us to do in our time of need, if we identify with Him, guess where we're going to run to first? We're going to run to Him. We're going to run to Him, and not in some superficial way. We're going to run to Him with a naked heart before Him. And when He says, what's your name? We're going to be honest with Him and say, my name is discouragement, my name is confusion, my name is overcomer, my name is encourager. But whatever your name is at that point. But let those places that you run to not be a discouragement to your life, not be a condemnation to your life. Let those things, if you find yourself running to here or running to here or running to there, and you kind of don't run to God, because after all, He's given me this and He's given me this, and but He's given you His name and He's given you free access to Himself. And if we run to those things first, maybe our problem is that we identify with those things more than we do identify with Him. So, Father, I'm just asking you this morning that you would change us, that you would stir us, that you would challenge us, so that we can act, so that we will live where our identity is locked in you. We'll grow in our understanding, knowing that it's not our name that we're living for, it's your name that you've given us to carry that we're living for, and that we cherish those things with all of our heart. I just pray that in those moments in time when we get discouraged because we can't do certain things, that we would actually encourage ourselves and say, it's because God has changed my life so much that even if I tried to walk different, I couldn't, just like Jacob. And we would look at those things and be able to put your name at that moment in time when you actually changed our life and go, even though I can never walk the same, your name, your stamp of approval is on that time of life, and my life will never be the same. And I'm just asking to help us in that we would grow in relationship with you, and that we would see others the way that you see them. And every time we look at even our enemy, we would say, I look in your face and I see Jesus. Your face is shining like that of God. So that we can walk in right relationship with you, and thus walk in right relationship with others. So Father, I thank you and praise you now for it. In Jesus' name, everybody say amen.